Hello, welcome to the Online Strength Coach Podcast, episode 114. Today's show is we're going to be talking about long-term goals and longevity in the sport of powerlifting, or lifting in general. So today I achieved one of my goals that I've set a long time ago, which was 180 kilos for 10 in bench press. So I was actually way happier about that lift than I was about 220 kilos, which I did last year, which was also a drug-free target of mine. So I have 3 drug-free targets, which I set probably in 2008, 2009. That was a 300 squat, 220 bench press, and a 320 kilo deadlift. So I've achieved one of those, and I'm also on the cusp of achieving the other two. And these are goals I set about 8 or 9 years ago. So I read a blog, well, not a blog post, I read a kind of bit of an ad, which I couldn't boost on Facebook, using the video of the 180 for 10 bench press as like a bit of a plug, if you will. I was basically saying that I benched 180 kilos for 1 and 185 straight afterwards in 2009. And that was a huge PB at the time. I was coming off a shoulder injury again. That was when I actually injured my shoulder properly. I injured my shoulder pretty badly, probably in the end of 2006, beginning of 2007. And I went 6 months without being able to bench press. I went about 2 months without being able to press, and then 4 months of only dumbbells. And then after a bit of time, nature took its course, and I could go back to bench pressing. And I've had bad shoulders on and off for the last 10 years. It's not something that really bothers me. I've been informed that I have labral tears, but that basically just means that there are a certain library of exercises that I can do that don't hurt my shoulder, so I just train pain-free. I've had the discussion with a few physios, and the consensus seems to be if you can get by without surgical intervention and nice pain-free, then it's probably best just to do that. So I find that the sport of powerlifting doesn't cause me any trouble. I tried weightlifting a while ago, and it really screwed in the shoulder. Just any kind of externally rotated position really hammers where the tear in the labrum is, or whatever the problem with my shoulder is. The external rotation, ballistic movement, all these things that weightlifting are seem to really screw my shoulder. Basically, the point of bringing that up was in 2009, I bench pressed 4 wheels, 180. It then took me, how long did it take me to bench 200? Probably benched 200 in 2011. Did a really shitty 210 in, I think, 2012. Definitely 2011, 2010. It was like a spotted 210, and then my bench stalled completely for a year or 2 years. And it was only until I started doing less intensity, more frequency, and more volume through the week that I actually started to get some more traction again. And only through I've had steady progress in my bench press for the last 18 to 24 months, mainly due to this new style of training, which is helping all of my lifts dramatically. And I've really, that was a process that started a little while ago. When I was kind of getting a bit more interested in the Norwegian style of training and the concepts behind that. But it was really kind of pushed to the fore, or really started taking off in earnest after the Boris Shiko seminar that I attended in February of last year. And if you follow my blog or you know anything about my training, you should probably already know that was like a light bulb moment for me. It was things that I already had in my head or in my mind about training that are just put together in a coherent manner, in a system that works, with a framework that I could take and adapt to my own style. So that's kind of where I'm at now with my training. I'm at a stage now where I know how to tinker with the variables, tinker with the volumes, intensities for me and my lifts, and get a fairly steady return out of my training. But the point being, this was a 1RM, and a 1RM I was hugely happy about when I was 8 years ago? So when I was 23, and here we are 8 years later, and I was now a 10RM I'm happy with. I don't think people really appreciate just how long your life is as a lifter. you may have you may take it up when you're 14, take it up when you're 18, 22, whenever you take it up. Even if you take it up when you're 50, you can still lift for 20 years. You can lift right from cradle to grave. If you train with the correct selection of intensity, the correct selection of volume, if you train in a manner that allows you to recover, you don't pick up too many overuse injuries, you shouldn't really pick up any acute injuries. If you're lucky enough not to pick up any acute injuries from lifting, there's no reason why you shouldn't be able to do it indefinitely, because you control every single variable. You control the plane of movement, the intensity of the movement, the volume that you do those movements with, the frequency you do them with, whether you decide to be drug assisted, undrug assisted. You can utilize wraps, belts, what have you. You control every single variable within the sport, which means if you know how to control those variables, there's absolutely no reason you can't have a very long career. And I've continued to improve right from, so I've been lifting, you could term it probably from about the age of 18, 19. So I'm now in my 12th or 13th year of lifting, where I've actually read about it, study about it, put new things into play, and I've not stopped progressing in that time. Sure, I've stalled here and I've stalled there. My 1RM squat was stuck at 260 for the guts of 3 or 4 years, but now that's moving on. I shifted up about 40 kilos in the last 2 years. Same with deadlift, it was stuck at 290 for about 4 years, and then with different training, but weight gain, and we're up 20 kilos on that, and hopefully up 30 kilos by the end of this month. So there's no reason that you can't continue to progress within lifting. But what you will hit in lifting is you'll hit big problems. You'll hit plateaus. You'll hit issues. Now, what you can do with these issues, you can get frustrated with them. You can use them as an excuse to begin steroids, which is, I've seen people that I train with do that. They had a plateau and they started using performance-enhancing drugs, which is fine, but it doesn't address the issue of the plateau. You plateaued for a reason that was related to training, almost like 90% related to training, or maybe it's related to nutrition, recovery. Most likely it's related to your training though. And you haven't went critically looked at what you do in a training sense, what you could do better, things you could apply differently, technique, how you program, how you utilize assistance work, look at other trainers, look at other coaches, lifters, what are they doing, what can you take from them? Have you maybe went and looked at hiring a coach? Have you went to a seminar? Have you trained with other lifters? Have you looked for solutions other than that solution? Some people will go and use knee wraps, they stall or squat. Though you use what James Henderson calls short, sharp responses. And what you get with short, sharp responses, you get short, sharp results that don't last. You need to have more. One of the main reasons why I haven't chosen to utilize performance-enhancing drugs as of yet, and it's not something that I'm ruling out, but one of the reasons why I haven't done it is because I really enjoy the problem-solving aspect of coaching and training, especially within coaching. But what I use for myself, and I had this conversation with a few of my listeners before, but I use myself as like a test tube, more or less. I try and figure out how I can get better. And that's one of the primary sources of knowledge, if you will, that I have. Obviously, I have 2 degrees, I've read whatever, I've watched whatever, I've coached for however long. But where I get a lot of the information that I have, or a lot of the problem-solving information that I have, it's just by using myself as a test dummy. So I train, I always try to get stronger at whatever I'm doing. But I have very specific goals. I'm trying to get better at bench press, trying to get better at squat, trying to get better at deadlift. Milestones I want to hit within a year, 5 years, 10-year milestones. I have some stretch goals that I'd like to hit under different circumstances, but potentially. But there's a rationale, there's a reason behind the goals that I set, and I don't set like what I term as a realistic goal. So, for instance, this year, my goal is a 310 squat, two 230 bench press, and a 330 deadlift, either in the gym or competition. In competition, my goal is to total 820, maybe a little bit more, hopefully. And eventually, my goal is to be the top 120 kilo lifter in Britain, and then to go on the world, so on and so forth. It just so happens that the 120 kilo lifter in Britain is a guy called Tony Cliff, who's a 912 kilo totaler, who is also one of the best lifters that Britain has seen probably in the last 20 years. But that's something that I'm setting myself as a, maybe not a, don't know how realistic a goal that is. We're talking, I need to put on 140 kilos on my total probably within the next 2 to 3 years. I've plenty of room to grow within the weight class, but it's kind of time frames you need to think of as a lifter. People think about what they're going to do this block, what they're going to do the next session, what they're going to do in 2 blocks time. Yes, it's okay to think like that, but that kind of thinking plays too much to the short term. You look for those short, sharp responses, and if you have that short-sightedness to your goal setting, that short-sightedness to training, you're going to make stupid fucking decisions. You're going to go on steroids too early. You're going to venture into equip lifting before your technique's ready for it. You're going to jump trainers. You're going to jump programs. You're highly unlikely to stick with methods, to stick with ways of training for long enough to be able to tell what works for you and what doesn't. You can't jump on a program for a month and tell if it works for you or not. You could start with the wrong max. You could be applying it wrong. You could have the wrong feedback. You could have the wrong technique. There are umpteen reasons why a training program or a training method isn't working for you. However, you stick with a program or a coach or whatever for 6 months, a year, 2 years, you have a much more informed decision there you can make. You know, you've been there, you've been with the coach for long enough, you've been with the training method for long enough, you've been trying the technique for long enough that you can actually make a pretty good informed decision as in, this is really working for me, or this is not quite working for me. What people don't really appreciate, I feel, is that 6 months is fuck all in lifting. It's not a long time. A year is a reasonable amount of time. When you're talking about lifting goals, you can talk about 3, 6, 9 year goals. Where you want to be in 3 years, where you want to be in 6 years. It's what you might call an accumulative sport. Strength gains, size gains, hypertrophy gains, bone mineral density gains, tendon plasticity changes, neurological gains, skill changes. These are all things that happen on the time frame of years and decades. They don't happen within a month, 2 months. The body doesn't work that quickly. It's a slow, accumulative process. So you don't start off with a 100 kilo squat at the age of 18, weighing 80 kilos, and realistically be hoping to squat 300 kilos in 5 years. There's not enough time to accrue the muscle mass. There's not enough time to accrue the skill. It's enough time to learn how to train. It's not enough time to get all the variables working together in such a way as you can achieve that goal. Regardless of body weight, you can gain 40 kilos of fat. You can get fat in a year. You can't put on a lot of muscle in a year. You can put on a reasonable amount with the right compounds if you're willing to go down that route. But also, you need to understand if that is your goal and that's something you want to do, which, there are some goals within strength training where you have to do that. You have to preach that. If you want to be the world's strongest man, you're not going to do it on creatine and whey protein. You're going to have to do certain things that everyone else does to get to that level. But if that's your goal, that's your level, you need to be thinking, right, technique, foundations, basics, competitive base, learn how to, for strongman, learn the events, learn how to train for the events, learn how to eke out what assistance lifts work for you. In powerlifting, it takes years, man, to become really proficient at squat, bench, and deadlift. You can make a lot of progress in a year, sure, regards technique, but you're not going to learn how to squat, quote unquote, master the squat in a year. You might master the squat in a decade. If you look at the 10,000 hour rule, which is not all that it is on the surface, what it is, it's a lot of time of deliberate practice. Deliberate practice is feedback, it's push yourself out of your comfort zone. It's consistency. It's a lot of time. It's not just doing something, squatting once a week, not really paying attention to your form. You might powerlift for a year. I mean, you might powerlift for 10 years and still be shit. Still not be able to squat because you squat maybe 5 sets a week. You don't really pay attention to your form. Slap on the weight. Maybe do like the whole starting strength thing where you're just trying to go heavier and heavier and heavier. What you need to do is you need to refine the movement first. Refine the movement, then add external load. It's a very long process. It's like sculpture. It's like Arnold Schwarzenegger says when he's talking and pumping iron about bodybuilding. It's like you add some layers here, then you chip away at it. So like the bulking, cutting thing, I need more delts, I need more biceps. So it takes time to accrue that mass, and then it takes time to reveal that mass through bulking, cutting, training. Powerlifting is no different. If you want to squat 400 kilos, say, first of all, what body weight is that going to happen at? Where are you at now? What are you going to have to do to achieve that goal? How long are you giving yourself? What are the steps you're going to take to it? Okay, do you have the movement capacity? Do you have the skill down enough where there are basically no weaknesses? Or maybe you need to put your bar lower, change your stance width, whatever. You need to remove all of the inefficiencies out of the movement as much as you can. That's going to take a long time. And then what movement inefficiencies do you have for your build? Are you too slim? Do you need bigger legs? Do you need more glutes? What's your current squat? What's the training method you're going to use to get to this landmark, that landmark? And it's not a linear process. It's not like you're going to start day 1 and then on day 3,560, 10 years down the line, you've mapped out every week on week what your 1RM is going to be and how it's going to track. It doesn't work like that. You're going to hit snags, you're going to get injured, your training routine is going to run into the ground, you're going to rely too much on a certain loading pattern, you're going to rely on too much on a certain technique, you're going to maybe get lost in a rabbit hole somewhere, maybe you get stuck into conjugate training, maybe you start doing 5-3-1, maybe you start doing things that aren't really feeding back into the end goal. Because there's not really one way to skin a cat. There are many ways to skin the cat, but you need to be able to consistently skin the cat for a long time. And you're going to hit snags, and you're going to hit road bumps, and where you become better and where you're going to learn how to apply that to others is how you come over those roadblocks. Where was the problem? What was the solution? What did you apply to that? What different things did you try? What didn't work? What worked? So like, hopefully you take away from this podcast that you need to start thinking on a longer time frame. Don't get disheartened. Don't lose your faith. Just keep at it. Keep chipping away. If you hit your head against the brick wall, eventually the brick wall will move. Or you can maybe, rather than hit your head against it, maybe you can walk around it. Maybe someone will show you how to walk around it rather than try and bring your head through it. Okay, thanks very much for listening. I've been Mark. This is the Online Strength Coach Podcast. If you have any questions you'd like to ask, shoot me a comment on YouTube. Otherwise, you can shoot me an email, speedpowerperformance@gmail.com. Thank you very much for listening. I've been Mark, and I'll catch you in the next Online Strength Coach Podcast. Thank you very much. Have a good night. Appreciate you listening. Bye.